is best? Should you just buy Bitcoin and hold, or should you have Bitcoin and altcoins, or should you just have altcoins? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
I invested £25,000. Today, that investment is worth £5 million.
Say hello to our hero, the Hydrogen Energy Release Optimizer. Limitless power, zero emissions.
Hi everybody, this is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto, filling our pockets with crypto profits. And I have with me Chris. Chris is from BTC Data. They are a company that is going to be using Bitcoin for business. Now, before I introduce him, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, join my official Telegram announcements channel, and please come over to bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey. Please support my work on Odyssey, censorship-resistant platform, and by signing up, no KYC, you get to earn crypto for watching videos. That can't be bad. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for making yourself available. And you and I, we recently recorded a video where you said about the Ripple decision. The SEC decision on Ripple wasn't good for Ripple, which is a very interesting argument. And really thank you for doing that. And then we started talking a little bit about Bitcoin, and you said why you're moving more and more towards, I would say, like becoming a Bitcoin maxi. Now, before we get into that, do you want to say a little bit about what it is you do and a bit about your business, BTC Data, or your company?
Well, Rich, good to have me, and thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoy our conversations, both on the screen and off.
Yes.
Certainly off the screen, a lot more colorful than on the screen. BTC Data, basically taking Bitcoin now and building it out for business. I spent the last 5 years in the altcoin space, thinking that altcoins were going to deliver the things that we needed for business, and I got wiped out, man. It's been a rough go. You've seen me in a lot of projects, and I just realized that I think Bitcoin is what we need to build on, and that's what we're doing with BTC Data. We're allowing customers to monetize microdata. Basically, if you've got a small piece of data that you want to bring to the market and sell, we're going to help you do that. And also, we're putting together an AI model to help you identify what data that you have that's valuable. And then finally, using Bitcoin and Bitcoin Lightning to bring the data to market. If you've got a data point like a single temperature, or maybe just a tweet, right? Or maybe a single JPEG, and you want to sell it. You're like, this is not worth $20, but it's probably worth 2 or 3 cents. Well, you can't sell it to somebody for 2 or 3 cents with a credit card swipe, or in the United States, we have ACH or wire transfer. You can't sell anything for a penny or two. But of course, with Lightning Rails and what's happening now, you can. And we're even using Nostr for our messaging to be able to transmit data between parties. And so we're building out a complete solution, letting companies and people of all sizes basically monetize their data. And you don't have to be selling things for 20 or 30 bucks to sell it. We make it profitable that you can sell something for 1 cent. Wow. Obviously, the business model is you want to sell a lot of it, and we can get into that later on at some other point. But that's what BTC Data is all about, and basically using Bitcoin now. I think for the second phase of Bitcoin, now with these new second layer solutions, is really taking us to where we need to go. And that's why when I wrote that Medium article the other day, which got your attention about my 5-year road to becoming a Bitcoin maximalist, I just basically realized for a multitude of reasons that I think Bitcoin. Well, we all know Bitcoin's here to stay. But I've really kind of given up on the altcoin space for a lot of reasons, and maybe we could talk about that and why I think Bitcoin is where you need to put your bet.
Okay. Now, something you said in the previous video about why Bitcoin wasn't a security and couldn't be a security is because there's no organization behind it. There's no Bitcoin company that's running the show and that can modify the code or anything like that, right? There's miners, but they're all independent, acting independently of each other. A little bit like how a gold mine company in this part of the world is acting independently of a different gold mine company in another part of the world, right? So nobody owns all the gold and is managing gold and making it more lustrous and shiny. Same deal with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's not a security.
Right, and that's also what's kind of led me to this road of Bitcoin maximalism. I'm in the United States, and I'm an American, and I had hoped that the U.S. was going to embrace cryptocurrency technology, and that it was going to allow the altcoin scene to flourish, because there are some great altcoin projects, no doubt, right? There's some cool stuff out there. But basically, as it stands in the United States today, under the Biden administration, I'll be very vocal about this, and Gary Gensler and our political environment, they hate crypto. They hate everything about it, and it is a war. There's no doubt, and everybody knows this now. They call it what crypto war version .2, whatever. And the point is if you're dealing with any cryptocurrency in the United States other than Bitcoin, the SEC is going to consider it a security. And if it's a security, then it's regulated. And if you're in the regulated business and you're using securities to conduct business in the United States, you're going to open yourself up to nothing but trouble. And of course, the Ripple case we talked about, they won, but really, people can watch that video. Obviously, they didn't really win. I don't care what anybody tells you. And so what, as an American, I realized that if I want to build out and use blockchain technology for business, that Bitcoin is the only reason to do it. And for two reasons. One, because it's not considered a security, which means all the transactions are not security transactions. It's a commodity to be able to settle, let's say, settle trade. And then now with Bitcoin Lightning and layer 2 solutions, it's instantaneous settlement, right? So we have the idea from at least the US, we have a regulatory environment that basically says you can play with Bitcoin and not go to jail, and you've got instantaneous settlement. And when you combine the two together, it basically says if you're going to be in the space and you're going to be building solutions on blockchain and crypto networks, Bitcoin is the only place to be. And then there's all sorts of other reasons for it as well. It's the most decentralized, it's the largest, it's the biggest, all that stuff. But to talk about not being a security and what makes Bitcoin so different is when you and I settle trade, and by using a commodity, we're not subject to any securities regulation. So if I'm going to wash your car, I think we used this analogy before, and you say, Chris, I'm going to pay you 10 pounds to wash your car. You pay me 10 pounds, it's a currency, and we settle the trade. But you could also say to me, hey, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and settle it with you with a box of oranges. And I'm like, hey, I like oranges. I'll take a box of oranges to wash your car. Or it could be a quart of milk, or it could be a liter of petrol or whatever. And I'll wash your car and you give me that. And so when we use Bitcoin to settle trade, it's like we're trading oranges or a liter of petrol or a gallon of milk or whatever, a quart of milk. And so therefore the security regulators don't care that you're giving me oranges to settle trade. They don't care. And therefore, from a regulatory financial aspect, now because of that, you really don't want to be using altcoins. I mean, you use Ripple, trouble for that, or even Ethereum.
But that could also apply. What you're saying about Bitcoin, I would say, from my understanding, also applies to Dogecoin and Litecoin and Monero and Pirate Chain and possibly Shiba Inu, because they're decentralized. There's no company behind them. They're all apart from Shiba Inu, which is a complete waste of time as a payment because the gas fees are so high. You need Ethereum to pay the gas fees, right? But all the others are fast, proof of work, decentralized. There's no Pirate Chain company.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of this has to do with, let's say, the pre-mine or the pre-sale, right? And so if somebody had released one of these type of cryptocurrency technologies into the wild with nobody sitting on bags of it, with no management team, with no legal entity behind it. I mean, that's the other thing. With Ethereum, you have the Ethereum Foundation in Switzerland, right? With Bitcoin, you don't. So, and with Dogecoin, you have that one guy that threw it out there. So maybe with Doge, you don't. So yeah, you could be argued that some of these things, or Litecoin, could be argued that they're really not securities, and that's okay. And I suppose you could use them as well for settlement. But now, we're talking about business, right, and using Bitcoin for business versus altcoins, if I am a real business, I'm not talking about I'm washing your car, but if we're really going to do business settlement, am I going to tell my customers, hey, you want to buy my product? I want you to buy Dogecoin to buy my product. And you're a supplier to Coca-Cola, and you're going to sell them, I don't know, molasses, and you're going to sell them 400 trains full of molasses. And I say, go buy Dogecoin. You're like, what? Right? Forget it. But if, for example, like at BTC Data, we've got a partnership with Kraken. We've got a commercial partnership that we built with Kraken. So I could say, hey, if you're so-and-so corporation, we have a relationship manager with Kraken in the United States. They will help you open up a commercial account. You could then hook up your real banking to it, and you can get the Bitcoin you need, whatever, to conduct business. But go ahead and try to buy that kind of volume in Dogecoin if you're talking about real business.
I get it about Dogecoin.
You get the point, right? I mean,
a coin. Well, yeah, but you could say, listen, it's got a dog on its face, right? That's the big attraction.
And I'm not against that, and I know it's a lot of fun, but I'm talking about if we're trying to build for business,
I got it.
And
for
the decentralization of the network and all these other things, it's serious.
But what about Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV then?
I would say if I was a business and I was going to conduct my business, do I want, and this gets back to my altcoin thing, Rich, why I got wiped out on altcoins. We did some great MVPs on some other Ethereum forks, and I'm not going to mention any projects because I don't want to be disparaging to some of the places I've worked at. But the reality is every business looked at it that was of any size and said, there's no way I'm going to put my commercial data on that network. It's too small, right? I'm not going to do it. And so there's a risk tolerance, even though you're dealing with a commodity, there's a risk tolerance. I don't, and think about Bitcoin, right? We've got BlackRock, which, is on my list of things. BlackRock, by the way, folks, I know a lot of people in the world haven't heard about BlackRock. They are the largest money manager in the world. Yep. The United States, our White House reports to Larry Fink at BlackRock. BlackRock doesn't report to him. Make no mistake. The White House reports to BlackRock. Chris, when BlackRock comes out and says, we're going to have a Bitcoin ETF, that changes everything. Yep. 5 years ago, and there's a quote, and I actually have it in my white paper from the exact date, Larry Fink at BlackRock said that Bitcoin was nothing but a proxy for money laundering and illegal activities in the world, and he would never touch it. It's a direct quote. You can find it, and I've got it in my white paper, and I'll give you a link to it, and you can reference my my write-up in Medium for this, and people can read it. And then a week and a half ago, he said that Bitcoin's the future of money, right? This is the most powerful man in the world, in the financial world, probably even more so than our Fed chairman, quite honestly. It's significant.
Also than Jamie Dimon?
He's up there. Those guys are the same. They're buddies, right? Dimon, Monahan over at Bank of America, but Larry Fink is the guy, right? BlackRock, they have all iShares. The IMF consults with BlackRock. When they're in trouble, they go to BlackRock to ask for advice, right? And so when these guys say we want to use Bitcoin, so if I can tell any Fortune 50 company, any Fortune 500 company, hey, I want you to use Bitcoin as the settlement layer, and they say, well, I don't know, and I say BlackRock has it, they're like, okay, where do I buy? BlackRock's not buying Dogecoin.
BlackRock is not. And they're not going to buy Monero or Pirate Chain either because there's going to be difficulties with auditing, right? Okay, I get it, right? And then I suppose with Lightning Network, then Bitcoin is as fast and as cheap as Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. Faster
and cheaper, right? Because those guys still have block times, right? So, and I was a big fan of Bitcoin Cash earlier just because it had less network fees. But it takes forever. I can't remember how many times I wanted to get a trade in. It took me an hour and a half to get 6 confirmations, whatever. Bitcoin Lightning, these new layer 2 solutions are extraordinary. And now that you could literally settle, and I tell you, when I talk to people about this, I have a little, I have some side interest like a lot of people, and I'll be with somebody and I'll say, hey, by the way, and just to pick one, I'm not trying to pick favorites. So I'll say, download Wallet of Satoshi, will you? They're like, what's that? I said, it's in your iPhone store. Get that. And I turn around and they say, okay, I got it. I said, go to the receive button, and they click it. And I take my phone and I go ahead and I said, watch how fast I'm going to send you 1,000 sats or whatever. And they're like, what's that? I said, it's a fraction of a Bitcoin. And I hit send and their phone goes, and I said, you can't do that with Venmo. And I said, by the way, did they ask you for your driver's license to install the app? Did they ask you for your bank account? Did they ask you for a social security number? Did they ask you for anything? Like, no. I said, it's instant global money. I said, you could be Japanese, you could be Chinese, you could be Korean, you could be in Brazil. And I said, I could do the same thing. And it blows their mind. And so, and now there's about 15 or 16,000 nodes. I'm running, of course, for our business, we're running some test nodes on Lightning and our channels and all that stuff. And so, and there's going to be other layer 2 solutions on Bitcoin that I think are extraordinary. I don't want to get, the ordinal thing is driving up fees. Then you've got BC 20 coins are coming out. But the point is that people are now going back to Bitcoin and now doing things with it other than just sending Bitcoin to each other. Right. And so it's an inflection point for Bitcoin now where really, in addition to be able to hold value and send value, you can actually conduct business. And it's getting to that tipping point. It's getting that critical mass. Bitcoin Lightning now is getting to a point where you've got enough mass that you can do real business on it, right? And it's a significant time. It's a significant time for Bitcoin. And this is what's going to drive the future of Bitcoin. It's going to be this adoption of using Bitcoin outside of the store of value, using it for business, international trade settlement. It's the strongest network. It's the most secure network. Yep. The IMF is not going to use Dogecoin to settle sovereign debt transactions, and they're sure the hell not going to use Ripple, right?
They may privately use Pirate Chain, but that's another matter.
Only the members of the IMF try
That's
to
right.
keep their money out
Between each other, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, no, I get it, right? But isn't there value in diversifying? And I've got possibly a clumsy analogy.
Okay.
So we got cryptos and then Bitcoin and the altcoins, and then we've got metals. So the analogy is with metals, and gold is supreme. Everybody wants gold, the ultimate form of money that all other forms of money are measured against, and it has no real other uses apart from that. That's its primary purpose. But then there's silver as well, and then and platinum is actually worth more per ounce than gold is. And palladium's been going up in value more than silver has done. And then there's rhodium, which I don't think is available to mine anymore. So, and tungsten, and they all have different uses and they serve different functions. So while gold may be the most valuable one in the same way that Bitcoin is the most valuable one, then other altcoins have different functions, just like other metals have different functions.
But do they? Tell me, what does Litecoin do better than Bitcoin other than have a 2.5-minute block time? But when you've got Bitcoin Lightning that's instantaneous, how is Litecoin a better Bitcoin?
Isn't Litecoin integrated Mimblewimble now? It's got privacy features.
Yeah, it does have Wimble minimal. So I suppose you could say that there's some obfuscation of your address, right? I suppose you could use CoinJoin in Bitcoin, no, right? You can use, the Wasabi wallet in Bitcoin, right?
Okay, all right. And then not going to do well here. Okay, then interoperability. So you will know that I've dabbled a lot in the Cosmos ecosystem. So you're familiar with Sentinel with their decentralized VPN, and then there's Osmosis, their DEX, and other Cosmos-based assets and what they do. And there's interoperability. You can go from one chain to another. That have different functions and purposes. So you can't do that with Bitcoin.
No, you can't. And when I was in the altcoin space specifically, I was dealing with an EVM fork, right? And saying, with smart contracts and all that. And of course, with Bitcoin, due to the small payload it has in the blockchain and the functionality, it doesn't have this mini script is not quite out there yet. And I'm not a super Bitcoin developer. I've got guys on my team that actually do the coding and all that. So if I speak out of hand or I get something technically incorrect, I hope people don't shoot me down. But Bitcoin does not have some of that advanced functionality that you have with Ethereum. For sure, Ethereum has got some really interesting use cases. And so I would say in that particular example, having smart contract functionality certainly brings something to the table. Now, what I've learned in the last 5 years is particularly this, is talking about, and again, I'm going to take a hardline view as a businessman trying to conduct business. And let's say we're trying to do business with a Fortune 500 company. Even though our company will take individuals, we'll take anybody. We're an upstart. We want any customers we can get. But let's just use a Fortune 500 company. You're talking to a purchasing manager at a Fortune 500 company. You're talking to a vice president, a channel manager, somebody like that at a large company. And you say, hey, I want you to be able to use this blockchain or this cryptocurrency to settle transactions. And try to explain to them what the benefit is. So the honestly is that there is nobody in a Fortune 500 company that's going to put any money into any project that's probably outside of the top 10 or 20 projects outside of, let's say, on CoinMarketCap. The bottom 20, they're not going to touch. They don't know who the companies are. If something goes wrong, right? With Bitcoin, it's big enough that they know there's nobody behind it. But if something like VeChain, for example, VeChain's got a team behind it, right? Even Cardano, which I run a Cardano pool with a partner of mine. And so, even if you look at Cardano, you could say IOHK and Charles and all those guys, are they in the space? Are they not? Do I trust them with my business data? So there's all these questions about who's behind the chain. Is it a group or not? Is it a company or not? Is there somebody I could go after if something goes wrong or not? What's my downside risk by using that project? And then if you say, well, we don't have anybody go after, it's a small chain, like what is it? What's that? Solana. How many times did the Solana chain stop?
Yeah.
Right? You want me to put my data on a chain that stops? This is business. Like American Airlines, are they going to put the reservation system to be able to send you boarding passes on Solana when they could stop? There's no way, right? And so I would say this is that, yeah, Ethereum is good, but it's too expensive, right? That's the problem with Ethereum still. And I know they're coming out with another fork and all that. But when with Bitcoin Lightning, when your transaction fees are measured in the hundredths of a cent,
Yep.
you can use it. When you got a smart contract call that even now is $3 or $4 to move a token on Ethereum, and you want to make millions a day for your business,
You're
you're
not
not
going
going.
to
Forget it.
But there are like the Cosmos assets. I mean, they fractions of a penny to send and really, really fast. Right now, there's a couple of altcoin projects I hold tokens in that actually do work in the business sector. One of them is Cajutel, and they launched in November 2017, very small ICO, $100,000, and they used the money, some of that money, to build a chain of high-speed solar-powered Wi-Fi stations in Sierra Leone. Now, it really was a raise to fund the project, but they didn't raise enough, so the CEO has been putting money from his own pocket to keep the project going. And now they've got, I think, about 8 towers in Freetown, and they're offering speeds of about 100 megabytes per second, where the competitors are offering 2 megabytes. Now, the token you don't need to use the token. It was just a way of raising equity. So, and it's an ERC20 token, but here's a project that has flourished and grown. It hasn't failed like many of the projects.
And that's fine, and I think it's great. But that's Sierra Leone, right? It's not a Fortune 500 company, right? If you want to have a project that's going to be used for mass business, a Fortune 500 company is not going to put their enterprise data on that chain. I think the technology is fabulous, and there will be specific one-off use cases for blockchain and cryptocurrency, and I wish them all the best, and I think it's great. And that's the idea, where we could revolutionize business and turn around and use these technologies to do things that traditional business doesn't solve. So I applaud them for that, and I think it's amazing. And I would never disparage any particular altcoin project from not achieving their goals or swinging for the fences, as they say. I wish them all the luck. I'm just saying, from a business standpoint, trying to deploy a business solution right now in the real world, in the United States or Western Europe, with real companies, our people are not, and not onboarding or getting the crypto on or off in the exchanges and all these other problems with it. It's really, really difficult, and it's an impediment to business, right? And it's been frustrating.
I have another one, Morpheus Network, and I did a series of sponsored videos for them. I'm not doing those currently. I'm not, just to make it clear, I'm not being paid for this to say this, or a representative of them, right? They have a token MNW. And what they've created is middleware for the supply chain. And they ICO'd, I think, in February 2018, raised, well, I can't remember, several $1 million. They're out of Canada. And they've been used by the US Customs uses their technology. There are several Chinese companies that use their technology. An agriculture department for Argentinian government uses their technology. And what it is, it's a way of tracking supply chain from when it's manufactured, or when it's resourced, all the way through to the customer, to the store. So, you get wood from, I don't know, the Amazon or Africa or whatever, ship it over to China, make a sofa or a table, ship it over to Canada to the warehouse, and then it goes to a retail. They've also got a contract with a top 50 Canadian listed company, Cooperative Warehouses, which is a supermarket chain in Canada. And it was an ERC20 token. They've done something different with it, where they're now using nodes and stuff, so it's faster and cheaper. But it operates as a utility token within their middleware system.
And look, I applaud that. Again, I think that there will be, if you can find a narrow enough specific use case for a blockchain or altcoin project, I think that you will have small wins here and there. And again, I applaud those guys. I just know 5 years of being in the space with some really good ideas, that to be able to get traction because of all these barriers of entry, it's difficult. And I think that for altcoins to be successful, you have to start with a very, very narrow use case and have a very, very specific function. And I think that is it. And I think that's the only way you can win in the altcoin space. And if you look at the majority of altcoins, and I know that I don't know what the exact number is, but I'm going to throw it out there. I would tell you that 99% or 99.5% of altcoins really have no utility, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. They don't. They've got some interesting ideas. The DeFi space blew up. Everybody was on Pancake Swap buying these meme tokens, and everybody was on Sushi Swap and all these swaps and 1inch and all these other places, and the whole system was feeding on itself. and there was this feeding frenzy. But the reality is, the majority of the tokens had no utility outside of just eating each other, and that's the way it is. And the fact that you've got a couple examples that have use cases, I think, is great. But let's be honest, there's like 15 or 18,000 altcoins out there now, maybe even more. How many have real legitimate use cases and are actually being used?
And how many have just failed and gone to nothing? So when I started my channel in April 2017, just before the ICO boom took off and everything, there's many projects that I purchased tokens in that went to nothing.
Yeah.
And even some later, like MyNextCoin and Pillar and PayPy and this one and that one, they all went to nothing. But I suppose because I threw my darts at so many,
right.
You should have thrown them at 100 altcoins, right?
For sure.
So there are some like Pirate Chain that I've done very well with, and Veruscoin I've done very well with, and Morpheus Network and Cagital, which I think are incredibly well-run companies. And credit to the CEOs and the teams who've run those, that they're still going strong and they're providing a real use case, real world use case. And the same I would say for DVPN and perhaps Mysterium. I've reached out to and they haven't responded for an interview. But I get it, Chris. Part of the problem is I don't have a particularly strong opinion. I know in this space there are Bitcoin maxis. Well, good luck to them. And then there are some people that are like, they're just Cardano purists. All right, good luck to you, right? I come from a broad church. I'll take them all.
Yeah. I'm just saying, for me, with my 5 years in the space, really working at it full time, I didn't use the word shitcoin yet, and I'm not gonna. You call them altcoins. And I know that there's a lot of Bitcoin maximalists out there that are just literally, really, it's Bitcoin or nothing, or it's my way or the highway. And I don't take that approach. I'm just trying to take, from a practical standpoint, in the United States, again, narrow. I think in Europe it's going to be better. Maybe in a couple of years it'll change. But from an actual deployment of business, to be able to build business solutions at this point in time, the strongest hand you could have is Bitcoin for multiple reasons. You're not dealing with security. You're not going to get in trouble with any regulators. You don't have to worry about violating any money transfer laws, because if you're moving oranges, you're not a money transmitter, right? I'm in the orange business. I'm trading oranges as far as I'm concerned. Now, some may argue that, but I would say that, I'm not ever taking US dollars. If you're in the business of taking US dollars and then changing it to Bitcoin and going back and forth, which we're not. Our customers show up here with Bitcoin and they show up with Lightning, and we help them conduct business. I'm not in the business of selling them Bitcoin for Lightning. So therefore, I'm really staying out of the money transmitter business, as they say in the US. And so, we're staying out of the regulatory crosshairs. We're using a network that Larry Fink from BlackRock says that he thinks it's the future of money, right? So now I can swipe away any disparaging remarks that, it's only Bitcoin, nobody cares. Hey, if BlackRock wants it, if it's good enough for BlackRock, that's basically good enough for God. So you should have some too. And then it's the strongest network. It's the most secure. Nobody's ever said to me, well, I don't know if Bitcoin's going to stop running next week, like Solana, right? Yeah. And so again, we could cherry pick specific projects and look at certain altcoins that are doing well. They've got some traction. The guys that are doing internet in Sierra Leone and the Morpheus Network and other people you've had some success with. And I think that's awesome. So as a Bitcoin maximalist, I'm not here to say, they suck. I'm just saying, from a strategy standpoint, a businessman, right now, with these new layer 2 solutions on Bitcoin starting to get critical mass and a tipping point, and with the regulatory environment, Bitcoin really is the place I think that I need to be for my business. Sure. And probably 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said that.
Yeah, what you're saying makes perfect sense. It's a smart, conservative, sensible strategy for where you are and what you're dealing with, right? Plus also a few other things about Bitcoin. It has the most liquidity, and it doesn't have the same level of acceptance as gold does, but it is the most known. You come and wash my car and I say, hey, Chris, I'll give you some CAG tokens. Have you got any ETH in your wallet so I can send it to you? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
CAG tokens? No, give me some Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So I completely get it, right? So I think, if all people do, if all they're interested in, if they want to get into the crypto space and all they do is just keep stacking sats, keep collecting Bitcoin, keep accumulating Bitcoin, they're not going to go wrong. They're not going to.
No, and people say, it's volatile, and it is. I mean, considering, I think right now the market cap of Bitcoin is about 550 billion this morning, about something like that. It's and this idea, like, wow, why is it so volatile? $550 billion market cap for a global asset when when you look at commercial debt, or you look at the debt space between sovereign and commercial
the gold
debt.
market.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, so let's just put it in perspective. The largest market in the world is the debt market. When you take all commercial debt and sovereign debt, it's like $300 trillion. By far, the debt market is the world's largest. And then if you say that, like, the global equity markets are around about 100 trillion, right? It's 1/3 equities. If you take all the value of all the companies in the entire world, it's only worth 1/3 the gross of the world's debt, right? So it's 300, then it's 100. And then you could take commercial real estate. People say it's worth about 100 trillion. And then you go all the way down. The next one in the pipeline is precious metals, which is worth about 25 trillion. Gold, platinum, silver, palladium, all these kind of things, about 25 trillion. And then you go all the way down from there. If you take the entire ecospace for cryptocurrencies, about 1 trillion right now, including 500 or 600 billion for Bitcoin. So it's infinitesimal compared. It's 1% of the equity market. And so it moves around a lot. But on the flip side, when you think that there's 7 billion people in this world, and there's only 21 million Bitcoin, and there's never going to be any more Bitcoin, right? You could print stocks, you could print bonds, and you can print fiat currency, but you can't print Bitcoin. It transcends all nations, all borders, all religions. It transcends everything. Nobody cares if you buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't care. Everybody can have it. And so when you think about that, and this ability that it now has the world's largest financial institutions behind it, it has a pretty strong case for it. And so I think that as people build out on Bitcoin, companies like mine and others, as we start to build out, I think you're going to see more layer 2 solutions that bring the functionality that we need. And that functionality is going to add future value to Bitcoin. Yeah, right now you could send a lot of money on Bitcoin, and you could send $1 billion for $1.50 or $2 for whatever the mining fees are, the network fees, and that's really cool. But the reality is instantaneous payments on Lightning or other business functionality on layer 2, and then being able to tie those transactions back to the main blockchain when you need to. And I think this layer 2 scaling is what's going to allow Bitcoin to really take its next phase of what this thing is, right? And that's where it's going. We're right at the cusp. We're right at the turning point of Bitcoin functionality versus just Bitcoin for money. And I think it's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary time in the life cycle of Bitcoin. The next 5 years is going to be mind-blowing, the stuff that people build on it. And I think that it's just going to continue to pull ahead of some of the others. Ethereum will be there, and some of these other altcoins, God bless them, I hope they do well. But when you start looking at global business or trade between countries or other things, I mean, Bitcoin could be a settlement layer for the IMF, and it could be a settlement layer with Bitcoin Lightning for Chris and Rich.
Yep.
Think about that.
Yep. Chris, thank you. I just wanted to add, just before we finish up, people think Bitcoin is volatile. They should look at some of the altcoins.
Yeah, right.
When Ripple goes up 70% in a day, and you can have altcoins that go up 150 zillion% in a day and then crash again, right? It's a roller coaster ride. So it's important for people to do their own research and check things out. And do not sell your wife, children, husband, house, underpants and everything to put it in this or any other cryptocurrency project. And Chris, thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again.
You bet.
Between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with crypto profits. This is Crypto Rich and Crypto Chris signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.